Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Just wanted to give my thoughts on the Halo Infinite campaign, which I just completed a handful of days ago. And I'm really impressed. I was a little worried at first because when I first started playing the game, I thought this is kind of just like every other Halo I've ever played. And I think it's kind of set up that way on purpose just to kind of ease you in to any changes, which I wouldn't say are huge or numerous, but at the same time, there are some changes that definitely separate this game from the previous ones. Just to give you a little bit of background, I'm a fan of the Halo series. I haven't played all of the games. I think I've missed a couple. I missed Reach and I missed Halo 5, which is the most recent one before this one. But otherwise, I've played them all. Played a lot of the multiplayer. I won't be discussing the multiplayer here because it's a long story, but I don't have wired internet on my Xbox in my game room, which is, again, a long story. So I'll just be talking about the campaign, and it's kind of a separate experience, anyways, since for some reason Microsoft is like piecing this game out. But at any rate, the gameplay feels very similar to the old games at first, and I was worried about it being kind of samey. But thankfully, after playing for the first half an hour to an hour, the game really opens up, and it's basically an open world map, and there's quite a bit to do. The different tasks that you're given are not really that varied. I mean, you have bases that the bad guys have taken over, and you have prisoners that you can rescue, and big facilities that you can take back for the UNSC. Basically, you're dropped into a landscape where the bad guys have taken over everything, and you've got to take everything back piece by piece, which is kind of a simple but very effective premise for an open world game. Because in every open world game, you're pretty much just ticking off all of these quests. And at least here, there's a simple, justifiable reason for doing all of it. Now, the downside to that is, like I said, there's not a ton of variety. You can take the bases back, you can take the prisoners back, you can take the big bases back, and you can do little things like destroy propaganda towers and things like that. So I wouldn't say it's the most unique or varied experience as far as open world stuff goes, but I was also a little worried because I'm kind of sick of open world games. I'm just one of those people that I really prefer to just have a 10, 20, 30 hour experience straight on through a campaign and be done with a game. And thankfully, I think Halo kind of maybe accidentally is the best of both worlds for me because it's still an open world that's fun to explore, but there's also not like a billion quests to do. And that's actually my preference. I can understand most people having that as a complaint because it is not as interesting of a world as most other open world games. That's for sure. But the thing that really grabbed me with this game is something that the series has pretty much had this whole time, but I just haven't experienced since Halo 4, and that's the combat. The combat is just so fun. And even if you're just really going here to there and battling and then going to another place and battling again, it's just so fun to use all the weapons, to jump in some vehicles, to hijack some vehicles, to melee the different enemies, which they throw some new enemies in there, but it's a lot of the same ones that we've seen before, even going back to Halo 1. They do throw some more variety in there, but it's nothing crazy in my opinion. But the straight up gameplay, I think, is just so fun in this game. And they added a grappling hook, which you saw earlier, which, again, this is just my speed. You know, the gameplay here is really good. It doesn't need a lot changed, but obviously the series has to evolve a little bit. So they added the grappling hook, which I think is like one big nice change. And it really adds to things, and it really helps you explore the scenery much easier And it's much more fun too. You can kind of get a little Spider-Man thing going, swinging through the trees and stuff like that. And also, the really tall landscapes and stuff, you can now traverse those without the game having to worry about having some kind of climbing mechanic. I mean, this basically does serve as the climbing mechanic, but it also lets you have a little bit of variety in combat as well. You can use it to shock enemies or pull yourself towards enemies or hijack vehicles. So, the one single big thing that they added, I really, really like. Also, the weapons, again, I didn't play this last game, Halo 5, but I'm not exactly sure which weapons were in that game, but the ones that are here that I'm not familiar with from a couple games ago, I think they all work really, really well, and there's just enough of them. There's probably, I don't know, 12 or 15 different weapons, and there's just enough to give you some choice and have your favorite ones, but it's not too overwhelming either. There's not 50 billion attachments or anything like that. I never thought that games needed stuff like that anyways, but quite frankly, overall, it's fun to just run around the map and take out bad guys and take back these locations. And yeah, it's a little flat in terms of how three-dimensional this world is because there's not a ton to do, but there's also the campaign itself, of course, which kept me going. So while there's not a huge, huge laundry list of stuff to do, there's also items that you can gather to, throw in a little bit of an RPG element where there's some upgrades you can make to the grappling hook and some other things that you get along the way. So there's enough to do. It's just for people that are looking for that 100 plus hour experience with every single game they play, they're not going to get that here unless they play the multiplayer as well, I guess. But the single player here is a massive success in my opinion. The game looks great, especially the indoor environments I think look really, really good. The Chief looks great. They're getting really, really close with the lighting and just the textures of different metals and things like that. Everything looks very, very convincing. So overall, I'm very happy with the game. I think it's worth getting. If you don't have Game Pass, it's still worth paying the $60 for. And I'm still playing around on the map, even though I've beaten the campaign, just trying to clean up all those little tasks that I haven't done before. And that's unusual for me, so I think the replay value here is pretty good. They don't have the co-op mode yet for some reason, which is kind of annoying, but a friend and I plan to tackle that when they do add it, which I think might be next month. I'm not sure, but overall, really, really happy with it. Did you guys play it? Did you consider buying it? If so, I think you should get it, but let me know what you think in the comments. Appreciate your time, and I'll talk to you later.
Nothing happened. Sorry. Maybe I'm going crazy. Or just paranoid.